Hey guys, so I realized in the main portion of this video, the camera was pointed in such a way that you couldn't necessarily see the top of my head while I was speaking, so I'm just gonna do a quick once over and let you guys see how it's looking at 2 weeks. Yeah. Also, I will have included my video outside and stuff like that, but I do want to say before you start watching this video, I have timestamps in the description for everything that I'm talking about. I have the number of grafts that I got, how much it costs, where I went in the description as well. I'm gonna include an Imager link in my description, IMGUR, an Imager link in my description where you can go check out the photos that I'm gonna include in this video. You can zoom in, you can save them if you want. You could, really take your time and inspect those pictures. I'm just saying this so I can kind of alleviate some of the questions that I see in the comments, like how many grafts did you get? Well, they're in the description. I'm going to say it at the beginning of every video. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm going to format my videos going forward. Check the description if you have a question. I probably answered it, or I probably gave you a timestamp of when I addressed your question. Cool. All right, enjoy the video. All right, hey, how's it going, guys? Back with another video. Today is day 15, so roughly 2 weeks from post-op from getting a hair transplant at Asli Tarcan in Istanbul, Turkey. I got 4,000 grafts from the back of my head, 1,000 from under my beard, for a total of 5,000 grafts. I paid $2,200, 500 of which was a beard fee. The base procedure cost $1,700. So first thing I want to talk about is scabbing. The scabs started to naturally come off throughout the hair washing process around day 8 or 9, and they were pretty much all gone by day 10, 11. And so I'm glad I didn't, rush to get them off around like day 5 or 6, because, I think the timeline that they give you is pretty accurate, pretty reliable. So I would definitely suggest not, pushing to get them off sooner than, obviously you want. But once they're off, you do kind of have a period of like, you can see your hair. You can see, like, honestly, if my result never gets better than this, like, I won't be disappointed. I would like the ability to, like, obviously trim my hair down to match the top, but if I, could rock a bald Caesar or a dark Caesar for the rest of my life, I would be more than happy. So I'm hoping that, at the very least, I get this, I get a result that looks similar to how it looks right now. Itching. I did start to experience itching around day 10 or 11. Actually, I would say day like 12 or 13, but and I hadn't been in the first week or so, and which I guess was pretty abnormal. The guys that I went to the clinic with have been telling me that their head was itching crazy, and I was like, I still don't really have any itching. But then one night I woke up like kind of in the middle of the night, and I realized I was like scratching my head, but not really scratching, just kind of like rubbing with my fingertips. And so one suggestion that I would make for everyone who's post-transplant is to, at all times, keep your fingernails trimmed very lowly. Obviously not like you know, cutting into your fingers, but like just keep them so low to the point that even when you are sleeping, you're not at risk of like really scratching at yourself. And honestly, the itching doesn't even warrant that type of scratching for me personally anyway. Just kind of slowly rubbing it kind of relieves the itching feeling. But so when I woke up at night and realized I was scratching, I immediately got up, popped a Claritin, and then I believe I was fine for the rest of the day. Claritin is a once a day pill that you take, and you can get it almost anywhere. And I found that that kind of reliably has kept me from having to continually itch. So I'm fortunate to have, you know, that work for me. But yeah, like I would suggest, keep your fingernails really short so that if you do catch yourself itching or in the middle of the night, or scratching in the middle of the night, you're starting to scratch, you kind of save yourself from, you know, making, damaging the back of your head. Asli does try to sell you some aftercare products, like upwards of like $400 for a whole package. One of the products I believe is supposed to be like a spray that you spray on your head daily, and it's supposed to relieve all itching. And so if you know, if money's not an obstacle for you, I would suggest maybe getting that if you're afraid of damaging your hair through scratching. One thing I do want to mention is that I'm already like, I'm past the point where I'm doing the foam, the hair repair foam and the shampooing every day. I'm on to an every other day hair washing cycle. I'm still using the shampoo that they gave me, even though some people have suggested maybe me switching to a shampoo that dries your hair out less. And so I picked up some biotin and collagen shampoo, and maybe, you know, 3 weeks in, I'll transition to that if I don't like the effects of this shampoo. But while shampooing, I am starting to see some hairs coming off my fingers. I still pretty much have a pretty decent like level of a shadow from the, you know, the parts that I got transplanted, but I am starting to see some hairs coming off in my hand. So I want to know, like, answer in the comments if you had a hair transplant, how early did you start to see hairs falling out? And I'm hoping this isn't like abnormal at all. I know that 4 weeks is typically around the time where you can expect to have had some hair fall, if not all your hair gone. So I'm not, you know, panicking too much. I can tell that my crown is light in terms of like the actual grafts that I got placed there. I'm definitely gonna need more, and that doesn't surprise me because when I went to Istanbul, they were trying to give me 5,500 grafts, and I only got 500 grafts. Or I'm sorry, 5,500 grafts, and I got 5,000 grafts. In my initial WhatsApp consultation where I sent them pictures, they said I was going to need 6,500 grafts. So it doesn't surprise me that my crown is looking lighter, but that's okay. They ended up putting 3,800 or 3,900 grafts in the frontal region of my head, 800 grafts in my crown, and 300 grafts in the middle portion. That's kind of how my 5,000 grafts break down. So I'll need more, and I'm gonna go into this a little bit more later in the video, and I'll have timestamps for all the videos, or for all the things that I talk about. But I'm thinking I'll wait a year and see how this, you know, the results I get from this procedure go, and then I'll potentially look into hair of Istanbul to get my crown done for my second procedure. But I'll talk about that more in depth later. Hair washing, I realized I didn't really go into the process of what hair washing is, or the hair washing process that they instruct you. So they give you two products. One, foam that you put 5 pumps across your head, you spread it out, and you let it sit for 20 minutes, and that's called the hair repair foam. And then you wash that out with warm water. They instruct you not to use too hot water or too cold water, a lukewarm temperature, and you don't use too harsh of a stream. So really, when I've been washing out, I've just been taking water and kind of like letting it fall over my head. And then afterwards, they give you, there's a shampoo that you lather up, and you kind of touch all over your recipient area as well as your donor area. Excuse me. And then I've been letting that sit for 20 minutes as well. So the total process is around 40 minutes. And I just, play video games or go back to work or do something like that when I do that. Hair cutting, I've tried to kind of take some clippers and knock down some of the untouched parts, but it just kind of creeps me out, like, or not creeps me out, but it's scary to be, you know, potentially breaking some of the protocols that they've been telling you, like saying don't use clippers on the top of your head for 6 months. I don't know if I'll ever wait that long. I think by 4 months I'll probably have gotten to the point where I use clippers, but I didn't want to risk, you know, 2 weeks in touching recipient area with clippers. So it's a very iffy process. I actually have a date tonight, and so I'm actually considering trying to use hair fibers and kind of like trying to make this match. I'm still kind of debating on whether or not that's a good idea, but if I end up doing it, then I'll clip a video onto the end of this video to kind of show you what it looks like. But honestly, everyone I've talked to, like, I can definitely notice obviously the difference between the top of my head and the sides and my donor area. But a lot of people that I've been around who I've told about my procedure have said they can't really tell, like, you know, unless they're looking very closely for something that's wrong. It's not crazy noticeable, so maybe I'll just, you know, rock how I look. All right, so that's really the end of my 2-week update. Now I'm just gonna go into answering some questions that I've seen throughout the comments. They asked about my SMP, so my scalp micropigmentation. It's like a hair tattoo. They use a slightly different ink than a regular tattoo, so it's not supposed to ever bleed or fade, or not fade as much like regular tattoos do. And so it's very tiny dots, you know, throughout the course of your head. And as you see in the intro, you know, a good SMP procedure can kind of give you the effect of having a full head of hair just shaved really low. And that's what, like, throughout college, most people thought I had. They're just like, hey, why do you shave your head? I was like, oh, I just do. It's just, you know, I like the look. But they believed that I could grow it out, you know, if I wanted to. I got my SMP at Scalp Micro USA in New York City, done by Matt Ayulo, and I believe it was around $2,000. And I, you know, have no problem giving him promo. He was a great guy. I think he's the best practitioner in the world. He gave me good results, and the atmosphere was very friendly. All of the practitioners in the office, the dudes doing the actual SMP, they all had SMP themselves. And so, you know, it was really, you know, comforting to see what the final result could look like before you even, you know, start your procedure. Definitely would recommend, if you're considering SMP, go to Scalp Micro USA. Another question I got was why I chose Asli Tarcan over Hair of Istanbul. And so there's a couple components to my answer, one of which is I knew I was going to need a lot of grafts, and the price for Asli Tarcan for $1,700 to be able to get, you know, 5,000 plus grafts for that low is, you know, I mean, that's pretty unique. And then I also have pretty decent results. The results I've seen all over YouTube, a lot of guys have really good results from Asli Tarcan. And so my initial plan was to get the bulk of my grafts at Asli Tarcan, and then potentially, once I only need maybe 1,000, 2,000 grafts more to, like, kind of do some touch-up work, then maybe go to Hair of Istanbul, who I think by that point, if you only need 2,000 grafts, I don't know any of the exact numbers, but I don't think they would charge more than $4,000 for 2,000 grafts. And so it made sense for me to get the bulk of my grafts for cheap, and then spend a little bit more money on touch-up work with Hair of Istanbul. Also, Asli Tarcan lets you use your beard hair as donor, whereas Hair of Istanbul doesn't let you do that. And so I was not, I knew I was, at some point I was gonna want to get my beard grafts, have my beard grafts used. And so it made more sense to do that in the initial phase with Asli Tarcan for cheaper, and then go Hair of Istanbul later. I kind of trust Hair of Istanbul to do some of the touch-up work for my crown, because they're going to be needing to place hairs in between existing hairs. And I just, you know, the work that I've seen, they do a really good job, and there's a reason why they're priced a little higher. They have a little bit better of a reputation, even though I did enjoy my experience at Asli Tarcan. And who knows, like, if this turns out amazing, I have a good thick amount of hairs, then maybe I will go back to Hair of Istanbul. But yeah, we'll see. Visa situation, I've gotten a lot of comments about what's required of a U.S. citizen in order to travel over to Istanbul. You need a general visa clearance, or visa, Turkey visa, I'm sorry. Really, I just Googled Turkey visa, and I think I was sent to a, this looks like it. It's evisa.gov.tr. It says Republic of Turkey electronic visa application system. It takes like maybe 20 minutes to do. You pay, I think, no more than like $50 for your visa. They send you, they give you a link to download like a PDF of your visa, and that's all you need. You don't need a medical visa. You don't need any particular type of visa. Your general electronic visa, you can get at the website that I said, and I'll put that same link into the description. And also, if you don't end up doing that before your trip, you can get a visa when you land in Istanbul. There's a little office in the airport where you can apply for a visa, and obviously pay there, and then you're fine. So no specific medical visa required. People have asked, how was I able to travel during COVID? From what I understand, United States citizens are banned from the EU, the European Union, but Turkey's not in the European Union. And so, I had no travel restrictions going. I had a direct flight from Washington, D.C. to Istanbul and back. But if you do have a connecting flight, maybe somewhere in the EU before you go to Istanbul, you definitely need to call ahead to the airline, the airport where you're going to be transferring, and make sure they're not going to give you an issue about letting you get on your connecting flight. And Black Hair Transplant Istanbul, Turkey, that YouTube channel, he talked about how a guy was coming from Florida, and I think he said Amsterdam is where his connecting flight was, and United States citizens are banned, so they turn them back around. So definitely do your research on that. Call ahead, and making sure that if you don't have a direct flight, you have a connecting flight, that you're not going to have any issues traveling during COVID. And then the last thing I want to talk about is graft number. How I came to the number of grafts that I decided to get. So overharvesting is like a big buzzword in this whole back hair transplant community, and we seem to really be the only group of people that like struggle so heavily with this idea. But overharvesting is where they take too many grafts from your donor area, from the back of your head, and it leaves, after 7-8 months, it doesn't really recover as well as you would expect, and it leaves it looking very thin. I definitely didn't want to have to go through that. I mean, honestly, if it's between having hair on the top of my head and hair on the sides of my head, I'm gonna choose hair on the top of my head 10 times out of 10. So, it was a risk I was willing to take to get, as many grafts as I needed to have a successful hair transplant. But because I knew I was gonna do this as a 2-part system, or a 2-procedure system, first hair transplant, second hair transplant, I decided to take it slow and not get as many grafts as possible, just running the risk, because those grafts don't grow back. So, you have a limited number of hairs on your body that can be transplanted, and you better do your research on how you want to wisely use them at any given point. Also, on a hair transplant Reddit that I had been reading through for months before I decided to do a hair transplant, someone mentioned that the reason why you want to avoid super high numbers of grafts, even though I'm not sure how much I believe getting a lot of grafts is really that bad, but he said the reason why you want to avoid getting a lot of grafts at any given time is because the amount of trauma that is done to your head, the more trauma done to your head, the more likely that the surrounding grafts that aren't being extracted, but they're just they're in the area of extraction, the more damage that you do to your head at any given time, the likely it is that shock loss is going to affect the existing hairs that are there. And so let's say, for example, you get 3,000 grafts done at one time, maybe there's only a 20% amount of shock loss or amount of damaged hair. you know, maybe by 7,000 grafts, you know, the number goes from 20% shock loss to like 60%, 70% shock loss. Not because you're necessarily just taking more hairs, but because the amount of trauma that's being done to your head at one time. I'm not sure how scientific that is. That's the theory I've heard floated around. And so I decided to just kind of play it safe. And I thought that, you know, I could reasonably live a happy life with 5,000 grafts at one given time. And then, you know, if I decide I need more, then I'll get more. And I'm not gonna let money play a huge part into that decision-making process. So yeah, I don't really think I have anything more to say. Like I said, I will put timestamps for everything I talked about in my description. I'm also gonna have an Imager, IMGUR link in my description where you can go check out the photos that I included in my introduction. So you can zoom in and really kind of see like the bumps and the scarring and stuff like that. I'll have the link for the visa process in the description as well, and as well as the details of how many grafts I got and the pricing. So if I can't think of anything else, I'll just see you guys at week 3. Thanks for watching. Bye. Hey, so last thing, one thing I did remember seeing in the comments was a question about why I chose FUE versus FUT. The answer is pretty simple. I don't wear my hair long. I don't have very thick hair, even in my donor area, but obviously, especially up top. And so I knew that if I got a scar in the back of my head, number one, I would need multiple FUT procedures if I got FUT. And for those that don't know, it's the strip method where they take a strip from the back of your head and dissect it to get the individual grafts. And then they implant them into the recipient area versus just extracting them one by one. I knew I don't wear my hair long enough. I don't have thick enough hair to hide a FUT scar. Whereas even if this doesn't turn out amazingly, I feel confident in my ability to go back to shaving my head. Like, you know, worst case scenario, go back to shaving my head and not having like noticeable nasty scarring. And another comment that I've seen is kind of questions about the scarring in general. Black people, the way our skin is, not every black person obviously, but we tend to get what's called keloids, which is just when, you know, healing of a scar or an open wound just doesn't heal very well. It bubbles up, the skin is really harsh, a different color, and it's very raised above the rest of your skin. You can look up what a keloid is. And so I thought the chance that I get bad keloid scarring from an FUT versus FUE, I thought was a lot higher with the FUT. And then also I don't wear my hair very long. I don't have very thick hair. So hiding the scar would be harder as well. FUE, I feel confident in hiding my scars, whether I fade, you know, I get a fade or I wear it long. And if I shave my head, I think I would still be comfortable with the way my head looks. And so that's pretty, that was an easy choice for me, especially now with like the way, you know, hair technology is going. FUE is becoming more and more of a reliable solution for hair transplants. And so, you know, the choice was pretty simple for me. I never really strongly considered a FUT procedure ever. But yeah. All right, actually, goodbye this time.